Kevin Costner risked everything for his dream movie. He put his beach house on the line and ignored his accountant's pleas not to spend $38 million of his own money. Costner didn't flinch. He believed in his vision too deeply to stop. But the first movie flopped, earning less than he had invested. Now, he's scrambling to complete the rest, selling off assets, moving money wherever he can. Friends say he's running on fumes, relying on faith more than finances. What looked like a passion project has turned into a financial and emotional nightmare. But to understand why Costner would bet it all, you have to go back to the beginning. Kevin was born in 1955 in Linwood, California, not Hollywood. His family didn't have money or fame. His father dug ditches before finding work as a utility worker, and his mother worked in welfare services. Before Kevin was even born, heartbreak had already struck. His middle brother died at birth, leaving just Kevin and his older brother Dan. His roots were a blend of German, English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and Cherokee heritage. The Costners were Baptist, lived simply, and often struggled. Nobody looking at that quiet, sensitive kid could have predicted he'd grow into a Hollywood icon. Kevin's childhood was restless. Because of his father's job, his family moved constantly. He was always the outsider, bouncing between towns like Compton, Ventura, and Visalia. Making friends wasn't easy, and the constant uprooting left him shy and uncertain. But instead of shutting down, Kevin turned inward. He found escape in music and poetry. He sang in the church choir and wrote poems quietly, hiding them away. School didn't shape him, but a movie did. At age 7, he watched How the West Was Won, and it left a permanent mark. The sweeping landscapes, the sense of adventure, it all struck a chord deep inside him. That film planted a seed that would later grow into the Western stories he'd pour his heart into. But back then, Kevin had different worries. As he reached high school, he stood just 5'2" and felt painfully self-conscious. He once asked his mother if he would ever grow. She reassured him with a simple promise. "I swear you are going to grow, honey." And she was right. Over the next few years, he shot up 11 inches and reached 6'1". Doctors call it catch-up growth, and it's rare. But even before the growth spurt, Kevin had grit. He played basketball, football, and baseball, holding his own against bigger, tougher athletes. One of his baseball teammates, Dennis Burt, even made it to the pros. Kevin didn't go pro, but the determination he showed on the field never left him. After high school in 1973, Kevin did something bold and unexpected. Inspired by the Lewis and Clark expedition, he decided to follow their path. He built a canoe by hand, rough but functional, and loaded it onto an old truck. Alone, he set out on an adventure, paddling rivers and sleeping under the stars. Along the way, he read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, a book that shattered his perspective. Night after night, it brought him to tears. It opened his eyes to the painful truths of Native American history. That journey wasn't just about exploration, it changed how he saw the world. It shaped the kind of storyteller he would become, someone who would later fight to tell those stories on screen. Just a few years later, something happened that sounds like a scene from a film. In 1978, Kevin had just gotten married and was flying home from Mexico with his wife. On the same flight sat Richard Burton, one of the greatest actors of his time. Burton had bought all the surrounding seats for privacy, but Kevin still walked over, waited quietly, and asked for a moment of his time. When Burton opened his eyes, Kevin confessed something he hadn't even told his wife. He wanted to act, but he didn't want the chaos of a dramatic life. Burton looked at him and said, "You have green eyes." "I have green eyes. I think you'll be fine." As the plane landed, Burton's limo pulled up beside the bus stop where Kevin and his wife waited. Burton rolled down his window and told him, "Good luck." That tiny encounter sparked something powerful. Within a month, Kevin quit his marketing job and started acting classes. He paid the bills however he could, driving trucks, working on fishing boats, and giving bus tours of celebrity homes. He had no money, no connections, and no clear path, but he had belief. His career didn't begin with stardom. It began with a movie he would later try to erase. Desperate and broke, Kevin accepted a role in Sizzle Beach, USA, a low-budget film with soft-core elements. During one intimate scene, he felt something in himself snap. He made a vow, never again. He wouldn't sell out, no matter how long it took to find meaningful work. That decision came at a cost. For nearly 6 years, he barely worked. He scraped by on small gigs and tried to buy the rights to the movie so he could bury it, but the distributor refused. After he became famous, they re-released it, using his name to sell tickets. He did manage to land roles, but they didn't change his life. In The Big Chill, he played a man whose suicide brought a group of friends back together. Kevin filmed powerful flashback scenes, but the director cut all of them. Every single one. All that remained was a shot of his lifeless face in the opening. No lines, no credit. What was supposed to be his big break vanished overnight. Still, he didn't stop. He took a background role in Francis, appeared briefly in an Apple Lisa commercial, and kept grinding through forgettable small films. Casting directors didn't remember him. He later said it felt like being the new kid at school, every single day. That old, lonely feeling followed him into Hollywood. But he kept going, he kept dreaming. Then, everything changed. The phone rang. It was Lawrence Kasdan, the same director who had cut him out of The Big Chill. Kasdan couldn't shake the guilt. He remembered how good Kevin had been. So he gave him another shot, this time in Silverado. It wasn't just any part, it was a role that let Costner finally unleash his charisma. And people noticed. He was electric. Suddenly, audiences remembered his name. That performance opened doors, one of which led to The Untouchables in 1987. It was a big-budget film packed with big names. Costner wasn't the studio's first choice. In fact, he wasn't even in the top 3. Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Jack Nicholson had all passed. But Steven Spielberg, who had worked with Costner, vouched for him. He told the director, "This guy's going somewhere." And he was right. Kevin went toe-to-toe with Robert De Niro and Sean Connery, and held his own. The film made over $100 million and turned Costner from a struggling actor into a full-fledged star. But he didn't pause to celebrate. He moved straight into Bull Durham, a movie he wanted to ground in authenticity. He insisted the director watch him play baseball before casting was finalized. Costner didn't just pretend, he performed. He hit from both sides of the plate. He threw with precision. He showed up like an athlete because he was one. He ran. He proved he could carry a film. And that's exactly what he did. Studios were skeptical. A baseball movie wouldn't sell, they said. But Costner helped prove them wrong. Bull Durham brought in over $50 million and earned praise from critics across the board. The next year, he followed it with Field of Dreams, a quiet, haunting film about a farmer hearing voices in a cornfield. "If you build it, he will come." That line became etched into American pop culture. The film earned nearly $85 million, landed Oscar nominations, and embedded itself into the hearts of moviegoers. It wasn't just a box office success. It became a memory shared across generations. By 1990, Costner was chasing more than just acting gigs. He launched TIG Productions to create the kind of films he truly believed in. His first passion project, Dances with Wolves. Studios were wary. They said it was too long, too strange, too much of a risk. They told him to trim the Native American language scenes. He refused. Cut the budget. He said no again. So, he did what few actors ever dare. He invested millions of his own money. It could have ended his career. Instead, it made history, winning 7 Oscars and grossing over $400 million worldwide. Costner didn't slow down. He followed it up with The Bodyguard, starring alongside Whitney Houston. It was another risky move, and another massive success. The film made over $400 million globally, and the soundtrack shattered records, becoming the best-selling movie soundtrack of all time. Years later, when no one else believed in Horizon, Costner returned to the same blueprint. He mortgaged his dream house to make it happen. The same conviction, the same all-in spirit. Because that's who Kevin Costner is, he doesn't wait for permission to tell stories. He just builds them, no matter the cost. Costner didn't just act, he committed. For Dances with Wolves, he spent 9 months learning Lakota Sioux. Not a few phrases, he brought in native advisors and insisted that nearly a third of the film be spoken in authentic Lakota. It made studios nervous. 2 of them passed on the project. But Orion Pictures finally took the leap. He hired Doris Leader Charge, a 60-year-old Lakota teacher, to translate the script and train the entire cast for 6 months. She later said she earned more teaching on that film than she ever had working on the Rosebud Reservation. Still, despite the effort, some native audiences laughed in the theater. Russell Means, a prominent Oglala Lakota activist, noted that many of the male characters, including Costner, were accidentally using the feminine version of the language. Even so, the film broke ground. It marked one of the first times a major Hollywood production devoted serious screen time to an indigenous language, and audiences took notice. When Dances with Wolves reached the Academy Awards in 1991, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. On March 25th, with nearly 43 million people watching, the film took home 7 Oscars out of 12 nominations. Costner won Best Director. only the fifth person in history to do so with a debut, and was also nominated for Best Actor. It beat Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, a decision still debated today. But the Academy clearly favored the sweeping frontier epic over the gritty mafia masterpiece. As Costner stood on stage, Oscar in hand, he confessed he hadn't always trusted himself. But the result was undeniable. The film became the first Western to win Best Picture in 60 years. He didn't take time to rest. Just days after wrapping Dances with Wolves, he dove headfirst into Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The schedule was brutal, and there was no time to recover. Costner skipped most stunt doubles and performed the majority of the action himself. He climbed castle walls, leapt over moats, and even injured his shoulder doing it. One stunt involved launching himself over a 10-meter-high wall using a catapult. 5,000 kilograms of force had to be precisely calculated to avoid disaster. On one shoot day in France, a stuntman casually offered to find magic mushrooms between takes. Costner laughed and quipped, "Nick, you ate mushrooms. We're gonna be swinging swords in an hour." Meanwhile, Heathrow Airport kept sending planes overhead, ruining take after take. The exhausting castle scenes had to be shot again and again. Then came JFK, not just another movie, but a statement. Costner played Jim Garrison, the New Orleans district attorney convinced there was a conspiracy behind President Kennedy's assassination. Director Oliver Stone didn't hold back. The film dared to suggest the CIA, FBI, military, and even the vice president might have been involved. Before the film even hit theaters, it ignited a national firestorm. Journalists, historians, and politicians called it reckless, dangerous, but Costner stood his ground. In an interview with Time magazine, he defended the film's message, saying, "Any discussion of what could be the truth can only make us freer." His performance wasn't about proving Garrison right, it was about forcing audiences to listen. And it worked. After JFK hit theaters in December 1991, the US government passed a law the following year to release previously secret JFK assassination files to the public. But perhaps the most strategic, and surprising, move of Costner's career came just months later, with The Bodyguard. He could have taken a $10 million paycheck up front. Instead, he bet on the film's success, choosing a percentage of the profits. And he waited an entire year for Whitney Houston's schedule to clear, because in his gut, he knew she was the one. He was right. The Bodyguard dropped on November 25, 1992, the same day as Disney's Aladdin, and still pulled in $16.6 million its opening weekend. It would go on to gross $410.9 million worldwide. In Japan alone, the film earned over $21 million and became Warner Bros.' biggest hit there. With box office returns and soundtrack royalties, Costner's payday soared. Some say over $20 million, maybe even $30 million. And the soundtrack, a phenomenon. Whitney's "I Will Always Love You" broke every record, with the album selling over 50 million copies. It won Album of the Year at the Grammys. Costner's bet had paid off, twice. Once in pure numbers, and again in timeless legacy. For a while, Kevin Costner was untouchable, Hollywood royalty. But by 1994, the wheels began to fall off. It started with Waterworld, a film that was supposed to cement his status as a blockbuster king. Instead, it spiraled into disaster. A hurricane slammed the Hawaiian set during filming, not just a storm, but one that obliterated a $5 million floating set. And that wasn't even the pricey one. The main structure, the atoll, cost $22 million, stretched a quarter-mile wide, and weighed over 1,000 tons. Hawaii ran out of steel. They had to ship it in from California. Then came the accidents. People nearly drowned. Co-stars were tossed from boats. Costner himself was tied to a mast during a storm and almost didn't make it. The stunt coordinator got the bends, compression sickness, and had to be airlifted to a hospital. The budget went nuclear, from $65 million to $100 million, then $135 million. It finally landed at $175 million. Add $60 million in marketing, and it became a $235 million bet. For comparison, Independence Day only cost $75 million. Suddenly, critics weren't calling it a movie. They called it fish tar. Kevin's Gate. Even though it later made some of that money back on home video, the damage was done. The press had a new narrative. Costner wasn't just a star. He was an ego out of control. The behind-the-scenes drama didn't help. His longtime friend and director Kevin Reynolds, who had worked with him on Robin Hood, quit after 133 exhausting days. He left with a biting quote, "Kevin should direct himself." So that's what Costner did. He finished the movie on his own. All this played out while his 16-year marriage crumbled. Some said the stress leaked onto the set. The tabloids had a field day. Then came the rumor mill. Stories about him asking for digital hair to be added in post to cover his receding hairline. Costner denied it, called it nonsense, insisted he was never high or drunk on set. But the image stuck. The headlines painted him as vain, difficult, a diva. Then came The Postman. Costner directed and starred. It flopped harder. It didn't just lose money, it became a cultural punchline. The film won Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Actor, and Worst Director. He swept the categories. It was a first. By 1998, critics weren't just unimpressed. They were done with him. They wanted him gone. But Costner never quit. In 2003, he returned with Open Range. No effects, no gimmicks, just a classic Western with grit and heart. He directed it himself and starred alongside Robert Duvall. The budget was modest, $26 million, but it made over $68 million globally. A quiet win, a reminder, he still had it. Then in 2007, he flipped the script completely. In Mr. Brooks, he played a serial killer, charming on the outside, twisted on the inside. No cowboy hat, no white horse, just cold calculation behind a smile. It was haunting and brilliant. He used his reputation as a nice guy to rattle the audience. It worked. By 2012, the industry couldn't ignore him anymore. With Hatfields and McCoys, Costner lit up TV screens. It was raw, violent, human. He almost turned down the role 3 times. But when he said yes, it was magic. Over 14 million people watched the premiere. He won Best Actor, and Hollywood remembered why they loved Kevin Costner in the first place. He just kept going. In 2016, during the filming of Hidden Figures, Costner was secretly suffering from brutal kidney stones. He powered through scenes on morphine. Never missed a day. The pain left bruises on his arms. He just rolled down his sleeves and kept going. Then came Yellowstone. In 2017, Taylor Sheridan approached him about playing John Dutton. Costner hesitated. He agreed, but only for 1 season, and only under strict conditions. Still, when the show launched in 2018, it grew quietly, then exploded. It didn't win awards. It didn't trend online, but it struck a chord. People loved it. In season 1, Costner made $500,000 per episode. By season 5, that number soared to $1.3 million per episode. 14 episodes at that rate. That's $18.2 million. But Costner wasn't done. In 2023, he reportedly asked for $1.5 million per episode. At the same time, he was knee-deep in Horizon, the passion project he'd been dreaming of for decades. And that's when the tension boiled over. Yellowstone's producers were frustrated. Filming schedules clashed. What used to be an 8-week shoot ballooned to 12 weeks. Costner had planned Horizon around his breaks, but those breaks kept shifting. The compromise offer split season 5 into 2 parts, 5A and 5B. He refused. He chose Horizon. That decision cost Yellowstone its lead. John Dutton had to be written out. Not with a grand farewell. Not with a hero's exit. In the mid-season premiere in November 2024, fans were stunned. Dutton was found dead in a bathtub, a note nearby. At first glance, suicide. But 2 episodes later, the truth unraveled. He had been murdered, smothered by 3 hitmen sent by Sarah Atwood. They staged it, faked the note, tried to bury the truth. But the legacy of John Dutton and Kevin Costner refused to vanish. Case spotted the inconsistencies. A homicide probe started. But then, in a cruel twist, Sarah Atwood herself was gunned down, shot twice in the head and chest during a reunion with Jamie. Costner didn't even know his final Yellowstone episode had aired until the next day. He admitted as much in an interview the morning after. "I heard it's a suicide," he said, a shrug in his voice. "Doesn't make me want to go see it." He had once pitched 2 alternative endings for John Dutton, neither of which were used. Instead, the show made its own call, one that Costner simply shrugged off publicly. Still, while others on the cast were earning $200,000 an episode, Costner walked away with over $24 million in the final season. The show, despite his absence, set new records. The 5B premiere attracted 16.4 million viewers, beating the 15.9 million who had tuned in for the 5A premiere 2 years earlier. And it all began with just $2.8 million for season 1. Costner had already moved on. His focus? Horizon. Not just a film, but an obsession. He began writing it in 1988, a story that refused to leave him. After Open Range in 2003, he He tried pitching it to Disney, but they rejected him over a $5 million budget dispute. For decades, the project sat untouched. Then, in 2022, he found the backing, at a cost. He mortgaged his 10-acre oceanfront property in Santa Barbara. His accountant nearly had a panic attack when Costner told him he was putting $38 million of his own money into the film. "It's my life," Costner told him, resolute. "I believe in it." The budget for the first 2 chapters of Horizon hit $100 million. Costner personally funded more than a third of it. When Chapter 1 premiered at Cannes on May 19, 2024, it was meant to be his grand return to directing after Dances with Wolves. But the reviews were mixed. Some loved it, others didn't. The box office? Disappointing. The film made just $38.7 million worldwide, a sum that didn't even cover Costner's personal investment. But he pressed on. Chapter 2 premiered in Venice, and Chapter 3 was already shooting in May 2024. Chapter 4 was in development. This was no small-scale project. There were over 170 speaking roles across the 4 films. Chapter 1 alone had a cast that included Sienna Miller, Sam Worthington, and Luke Wilson. Costner was all in. Even as the financials fell short, he refused to quit. Meanwhile, his personal life remained just as tumultuous. His first marriage, to Cindy Silver, ended in 1994 with a painful $80 million divorce settlement. They had 3 children and no prenup. He later called it one of the lowest points of his life. But by 2025, the two were reportedly on better terms. She helped him navigate his second divorce, from Christine Baumgartner. The couple had been married for 18 years. On May 1, 2023, she filed for divorce, a shock to everyone. This time, Costner had signed a prenup. But the process was still brutal. She had to leave his homes, and he was paying $63,209 per month in support. By early 2025, Baumgartner was engaged to a former friend of his, Josh Connor. Rumors swirled that Costner was planning to renegotiate the deal once she remarried. As if that wasn't enough, the Yellowstone rumors began. Just as his divorce broke, wild stories started circulating. One claimed he had gotten a crew member pregnant on set. Another suggested he was skipping filming. His team called these rumors nonsense, but the damage was done. The timing seemed almost deliberate, meant to hurt him. In early 2025, Costner began dating again, but with one rule: no Hollywood actresses. Insiders claimed he wanted someone average. His friends tried setting him up. He was acting like a man in his 20s again, craving freedom, not anything serious, at least, not yet. Costner had already lived the full Hollywood cycle: fame, marriage, scandal, divorce. And now, he was enjoying the freedom that came with it. Now 70, Kevin Costner isn't slowing down. Instead, he's accelerating. On May 26, 2025, his new DOCU series Kevin Costner's The West will premiere on the History Channel. And it's not just one episode, it's a series, a testament to the ever-evolving story of a man who just won't quit. It's a special 2-episode event to kick off an 8-part series. After those 2 episodes, another episode follows the next night before the show settles into its regular Monday slot. This series is different. It's not about cowboys with perfect teeth riding into the sunset. It's about land conflicts and the raw truth of how the West was really won, or stolen. Costner worked with Doris Kearns Goodwin, a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian, to bring big names and a big story to life. And he's not just hosting, he's producing it, alongside Academy Award winners. This isn't a retirement project for Costner. It's a mission. Costner is still fighting to finish his 4-part film series Horizon. Despite the first chapter's $38.7 million failure on a $100 million budget, he hasn't given up. He's already spent $38 million of his own money on Chapter 3 and is seeking more to finish both Chapters 3 and 4. "When I feel rejection, my desire increases," he said. To support the project, Costner built Territory Film Studios in Utah, a $100 million, 500-acre facility. Phase 1 includes a 39,000-square-foot warehouse used for Horizon Chapter 3, with plans for more space. This is about more than a movie. Costner is building a legacy. But the risks are high. After the flop of Horizon Chapter 1, his finances took a hit. Reports say he mortgaged his land to fund the film, ignoring his accountant's warnings. By late 2024, sources close to him feared he was running out of time and money. If things don't turn around, he could lose even more.